Hello and welcome. This is Hawkissimo, and in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about Clash and some strategies specific to this mode. I've run across a lot of really bad deployments by my teammates and enemies, and want to make sure that you're not making some of these very common mistakes. So for ease of showing you stuff, I'm just going to go into co-op versus AI, pick Clash, and choose easy. The point isn't trying to make this difficult, but to show some basics. All right, with that said, I don't think it really matters who I pick. Let me go ahead and just take somebody with some high mobility. Okay, so again, this is not at all about the god I chose. It's really about the map itself and some just generalized advice specific to Clash. So let's talk about this right here in character selection. You know, whether you're solo queuing or doing a group of pre-mades, you want to have a balanced team, and you want to start to think about, you know, who's going to have an easier time clearing minion wave, who's going to excel in area of effect damage like a mage would typically do, who's going to have some crowd control, who's going to do the one-on-one damage, you know, those sorts of things. What kind of synergy are we going to get? And obviously the classic combination would be one god from each class, but even beyond that, just randomly throwing together gods isn't as good as having some thought process behind it. So for instance, when I see a Hades, I know that as a warrior, if I go Odin, that combos very nicely, because it doesn't matter whether Hades initiates or I initiate, the other can follow up on it, and we can get a lot of synergy going that way. So again, let's just go right into builds, not even really caring. So one of the big mistakes that I see, and the bots are going to do this, well, actually they're not, but I see a lot of people stop right here at this mana camp. There are two blue camps. You know, there's this one, and then if you look where my cursor is, right over here, there's the other camp. You don't want your team to go to either one, because the enemy also has two. What you really always want to do is come here to red and try and get this cleared ASAP. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're saying to the enemy team, hey, it's okay if you have 3 camps to R2. So you never want to let this camp go uncontested. Now, the bots aren't going to go ahead and contest it. Now, because this camp should be contested right away, what I think is a wise move is to have your team quickly, have some of your team quickly come over and see whether they've cleared this camp. And if not, go ahead and clear it. Because then what you have is the opportunity to have 4 buffs to their now 1 buff. So that can start to put the snowball to your advantage as a team. And of course, you would say, take this jungle buff using your VGS and ping the map a couple times so that they know what you're talking about. So I think that those are 2 very strong thought processes on how you want to, whoops, death by minions, open up your game. So let's kick out of this, and let's just talk about enemy and allied team synergy. Hey, GT, how are you? That's funny. I'm not even like publicly broadcasting, but I'm putting together a video here where I talk about some of the mistakes that I often see in Clash, because I'm getting really tired of seeing it when it's on my team. And the last match I was in was just surreal. So forgive me while I soapbox for a moment and wrap up this video. So while we're talking about synergy, you know, I think that's something that you can discuss on mic before you get into game if you're with your friends. You know, and I like to start to think about what those nice combos are going to be. And I like to try and combo around my damage dealer. So let's just for giggles talk about some of the easiest theoretical combinations that are out there. So if my ally is popping in Hades, Hades can be an initiating mage, or he can follow up on an initiation by somebody else. But the bottom line is, because he can use his 1 to close the distance and then go into his ult, whether or not their basic attacks comboed in, like I talk about in my guide for him, what you don't want to have is the enemy just starting to use beads, purification, to just walk right out of his ult. So there are some nice ways to combo off that. One of the ones that I mentioned earlier was simple. You drop the Odin cage and life becomes very difficult for your enemy, because now they need 2 different methods just to escape that ability combination that's going on, right? So purification would get you out of his ultimate in terms of being able to walk away, but then the Ring of Spear still has you trapped. Moreover, you have the 100% healing debuff that's occurring while Odin's cage has them trapped up, but you also have the ticks of damage that are occurring from Hades. Let's further expand on that. So now, if you had a Hao Yi using his ultimate raining down into that, you've got some nice area of effect occurring there, so that works really well. Ares definitely pulls people into a centralized area, and again, it doesn't matter whether Ares initiates, whether Hades does, whether Odin does, but they all start to pile onto each other's abilities, and those are the things that you want to start to think about. So in Assassin World, how can we go ahead and look for something that would combo? Well, making them suddenly deal with the Hun Bot's ult, where they're fear no evil and they're running around spastically, makes it very difficult to start to use jumps and abilities to try to clear all of the other types of CC and or burst and or dot damage that are going on. So that would be an example. I don't think it's as strong, but let's come back to Hunters and let's talk about, Artemis, if Tusky, her ultimate is the Caledonian Boar, but people affectionately refer to him as Tusky. If he starts throwing around stuns and all of that, that works really nicely. Let's talk about CERN going in and dropping the Wild Hunt, where they're polymorphed, they're silenced and disarmed. Just nightmare scenarios for that. If Medusa drops her ult while they're in all of that, they have that petrification aspect, which has the 2-second stun. So much for using purification to get out of there. They also have a movement speed slow on there. So, lots of different ways that you can use to combo. Cupid's ult. And again, you don't need the full set of effects. You're just looking for different combinations. Xbalanque's ultimate can use to set up, while they're blind because of the darkness, and then that makes it easier for Odin to aggress in there, or Hades. Back to mages. Let's talk about other people that can combo onto Hades or around Odin's cage. When Anubis starts vomiting dot damage into that, it's just horrible, man. People don't want any part of that nonsense. Agni dropping in rains of fire, similar to the Hao Yi or Ho Yi, if you prefer, effect. I don't think it works as well with Odin, but certainly with Ares and with Hades, you have your opponents trapped in that narrow field, makes it easy for Kuka to breathe down, makes it easy for Nox to throw her ability. The Kraken fits perfectly with inside Odin cage. Vulcan's ult does so much stupid damage, and I mean, look at it. At max level, you're doing 880 plus 130% of your power. The disadvantage is that it starts at 60% strength, but it cycles up to the full amount the further you get away. Well, how do you make that easy? You make it easy by having an Odin Cage or a Hades ult that you know is going to go up. As long as they communicate it, whether it's through VGS or using their mic by saying ultimate is ready, you know right away that Hades or Ares or Odin is getting ready to go in and initiate, and they should already be hitting their triangle, lining that up, and just waiting for the effect to go up and puke that horrible damage in. Soul raining down fire into that, very nasty. Zeus, his ult, just toxic. But forget his ult. You don't even need the ult. Just him throwing the Aegis Assault in there is horrible. You're going to have little charges on everybody, so when you detonate your charges, toxic. Zhang Hui popping his ult while they're trapped in that area and bursting out that dot damage. So lots of different styles of comboing. You definitely want to think about that. One of the other things that you should be thinking about, whether, again, you're in pre-made or you're with a bunch of randos, is definitely use your touchpad to look at people's belts. And if you're not familiar with this, let's go ahead and, again, just go into training, arena practice. I just want to show you how you can be checking builds in. And again, the God isn't important. It's the technique that I'm trying to convey. So that you can see who's building stacks and then think about, hey, do we really want 3, 4, 5 of us building stacks? And the answer is hell no, we don't want that. You want to be intelligent with who and how and when stacks are getting built. That way you're not all desperately competing for that minion farm that's going on. So once the game goes in, even before I buy a single thing, I often go ahead and use that touchpad above my PlayStation button. And I'm sure there are commands on the others that let you see who's building what. And just take a look, and not only look at, hey, what are the starter items that they're taking, and, or did they just rush boots or, rush right into Transcendence or something. So here you can see, I want to know what relics they've started. And as soon as your allies or your minions start to get in range of the enemy, that intelligence will also be displayed for them. So you'll start to get the benefit of that. So, for instance, if I start that, you can start to see it pop in. But boom, there. Now I know, wow, 4 of my teammates have purification. I'm the only one that took a starter item. I look at the enemy team. I say, well, am I really that worried about Ymir, freeze, or Neath stun? Thor will slap down the wall, but, there are worse things. So I can start to make decisions about that kind of thing. And as we proceed through the game, I'm looking to see how can I synergize with my team. So, for instance, one of the things that I might do, and again, not necessarily for this character, is start to think about, hey, based on my composition of my team, how many physical do I have? How many magical do I have? And is there a way that I can make them more efficient? So, Hawk, what are you talking about? Well, for instance, if there are a lot of physical guys on my team, if I take Void Shield as a warrior, not only am I continuing to build some damage, continuing to build some defense, but I put out this aura that says that my enemy gods, whenever they're in that greater circle around me, right, they're going to have their physical protection reduced by 20. Suddenly my assassin and my hunter are going to hit a lot harder because I've debuffed the enemy's protections. And again, always keep in mind that here I am, first level, I have 29 physical protections. I'd be transforming the opponent in that position to having 20 had that been the first thing I built. And obviously I wouldn't be first level, but you get the idea. Likewise, if you're thinking about, you know, some offense, if you went into Executioner as a warrior, you know, is a warrior's job necessarily to build damage? No, but can he complement what's occurring by making his assassin and hunter hit harder simply by putting a stacking debuff on the enemy? And for those kinds of situations, that can go well. Likewise, Guardians can do the same. You know, if you're looking at magical defense, you don't have to just think about the buffs that you can put. You can start to think about the negatives. So if you're looking, you know, as the physical guys, I can take Runic Shield, and if I'm that type of warrior that's going to be up in your face, you know, so much the better that I've dropped 50 magical protection on myself. I've dropped 100 health so that I have higher effective health. But hey, I'm also debuffing the enemy power by 50 simply by being up in their face. That's great. That means that they're hitting all of my allies for less damage. And those are the types of things that you can think about. So there's, again, both the positive and negative attributes. There's that, I can't even remember the name of the item. Maybe GT can call it out for me. But it's the magical equivalent of the Void Shield, where you get, I think it's 40 power, 70 defense, and you debuff the enemy's magical protection by 20. If you're a Guardian, you know, your mage is going to love you when you're getting up in the enemy's face and putting on that, making your mage hit that harder. Excuse the coughs. I've been sick for the last couple days. Or I should say sicker than my normal level of sick. So those are the sorts of things that you want to think about. And in Clash, I can't stress how important that initial deployment is to the outcome of the game. You know, hey, there's snowball meta period in Smite regardless of the mode. I think Joust, for instance, is the most snowbally of them because it's only 3-on-3. If you or your ally makes a mistake, or one of the enemies starts to, you start to get level advantage very quickly. And as long as you don't really drop the ball, you'll continue to build upon that early advantage. And so for that reason, in Clash, you know, you have that nice, there's one red buff. There's one buff that will add to the damage of one person and 2 blue buffs. Why the hell would you ever start at a blue buff and just say, hey, you guys take your 2 blue buffs and get the red and start to pound us as a result? No, go immediately contest that red. Don't just let them take it. And, you know, if the sides seem reasonably even, you know, that's perfectly fine. You don't necessarily have to aggress onto it. Just your physical presence there can thwart their attempt to take it. You know, obviously, if you follow my guides, you're dropping a ward there anyway, right? But in that instance, if you think they have better burst damage or better dot damage, right, what you can do is wait for them to initiate the damage on that camp. Let them use their ability on that camp. Don't be standing on the camp. Be in the periphery, the area of, so that they've started bursting it down, and then you and or your team can start to steal the camp. So those are some of the thoughts that I wanted to share about Clash in particular. If you found any of this information useful, I'd thank you to go ahead and click the like button. Of course, I'd love it if you'd click the subscribe. Clicking the bell notifies you of any new content that I put out there, and is very helpful to me as a content creator. If you have comments, questions, be free to post them below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And this is Hawkissimo signing out.